I'm Josh Cooperman, and this is the September 2024 installment of the Convo by Design Icon Registry, featuring another absolutely incredible creative who appeared on the show not once, but I think this gentleman has been on the show 4 times total over the past 11 years in every way possible. He's been on a panel, featured in an individual interview, been part of the showroom series. He's incredible. This month's inductee is an amazing talent, a gentleman, and a friend, Timothy Corrigan. I met Tim for the first time, I believe it was 2017. I went to his Los Angeles offices, and we spoke about so many things. And that is the episode I wanted to share with you today as we induct him into the Convo by Design Icon Registry. You know, sometimes you don't really know a person. You think you might, especially if they're a public figure, as Tim is, but some things you should know about Tim. First, he is an amazing person. He is one of those people you feel like you've known your whole life from the moment you meet him. Second, he already had a stellar career before design in the advertising industry. He led international operations for Saatchi & Saatchi's Bates Worldwide prior to opening his eponymous design firm in 1998. And for reference, Bates Worldwide in 1998 had billings in excess of $7.7 billion and operations in 70 plus countries with 156 offices. That's incredible. And the man at the top of international operations was one Timothy Corrigan. One of the interesting things Tim and I talked about was the Bates Worldwide concept of the USP, unique selling proposition. It's a concept you see offered everywhere, but rarely understood. The idea is that wherever there's competition, one must find the differentiator, the thing that makes them stand out, something that really no one else has, that idea that competitively sets you apart, that others in the field just don't offer. There's far more to the concept, but in a world where every designer is a, quote, award-winning designer, Tim allows the work to override the accolades. The irony is not lost on me to be talking about how it's not about the accolades while bestowing accolades on Tim. I get it. And the point is that Tim has always understood his USP. He launched his firm knowing what he wanted, while perhaps not sure how he was going to do it, stayed true to himself and the work. And you know what? The accolades followed. Tim is strong-willed, sure, on his design ideas, and doesn't seem to have anything to prove to anyone. Another reason why I'm so fond of Tim Corrigan and so happy to install him as this month's inductee to the Convo by Design Icon Registry. I'm Josh Cooperman. This is Convo by Design. Today we are with Timothy Corrigan. I'm a huge fan of your work.
Thank you so much.
And I'm also a huge fan of your background. Interior design was not your first career. You were
right.
International operations for Bates Worldwide, the Saatchi & Saatchi firm in advertising until 1998. What you've got this great career in advertising, and you have to be an interior designer. How did that happen?
Well, it was really interesting because I had gotten to a point in my career in advertising where I was really basically doing logistics. I was running 197 offices in 98 countries around the world, over 6,000 employees, and I realized that I was dealing with problems and putting out fires wherever I went, traveling around the world, and really I was so far removed from the creative process that had gotten me into advertising in the first place that I missed that day-to-day aspect of being involved in creative decisions and trying to figure out how to solve those issues.
What was it? Was it one day you woke up and said, not necessarily, I don't want to do this anymore, but you woke up saying, I want to do that? What was it?
Well, it was interesting. I had already started doing some interior design work while I was living in France, while I was running our European operations. So I'd started doing that, and I really enjoyed that whole process so much. So I started doing that as my nighttime job, and it was great because I really loved that. And so it became more and more clear that that's really what I wanted to do. And then there actually was one interesting situation that sort of made me say, that's enough. I was on the road basically for 11 days. Sleeping on an airplane, flying to Beijing to open our office there. I was there for 6 hours, got on an airplane and flew from there to Caracas, from there to London, et cetera. And I didn't even stay in a hotel for 11 days. I was just basically sleeping on airplanes and showering at the airport and going to the next meeting. And that's when I said, there's got to be a better way of living. And so I was really the decision to leave what I was doing in advertising and start my whole field, my new field in design.
So at the same time, and I want to ask if this is true, read an article about you in Architectural Digest. Your childhood home, I guess, was on the market again. You bought that, you remodeled it. It was in housing.
It was in Architectural Digest.
It was in Arch Digest,
yeah.
And that was your childhood home.
Right, exactly.
So what was that process like? Because at the time, that's not your chosen profession per se yet.
I know. By the time I bought it, actually, I was a designer.
Oh,
at that point.
you were,
so,
okay,
yes,
full
yes.
time.
So I was able to totally renovate it and sort of get rid of all the ghosts of your childhood and recreate it for the way I wanted to live today.
And your style is really well defined. It's really pronounced. Not that you're stuck within a certain confines necessarily, but it's grand. And it's durable, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I think it's more than just durable. It's really comfortable, and comfortable is really the basis upon which everything we do. And not just that it's physically comfortable. It has to, of course, be something soft to sit on and comfortable that way. But comfort has a lot of other elements, psychological, practical elements as well. We've all walked into houses where it clearly says, "Look, but don't touch." You're not meant to really live here. You're supposed to just look at it. And that's not the way we design. We really design to live in houses. So they're comfortable to live in ways of, you can put your hot mug down on a table, not worry about leaving a mark. You can put a wet glass on a table, again, not worrying about a mark. Put your feet up on a sofa, and again, not worry about staining it. So it's really about using materials and treating materials in such a way that you can live in them comfortably, because that is really one of the key things of a really successful home, is one that you can live in comfortably.
And you do that with regularity, and it's fascinating. So one of the philosophical concepts that came out of Bates Worldwide was the concept of the USP.
Right, the unique selling proposition.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So did you take that from your advertising career, and because you've done an absolutely remarkable job with your brand, do you apply that same approach?
We absolutely do. We actually we started out with a USP and a slogan of a world of comfortable elegance. We started positioning ourselves from the very beginning on this aspect of timeless, comfortable elegance. And again, timeless is so important because we've all walked into houses where it clearly says, "Oh, that was done in 1968, and that was done in 2012, and that was done in 2019," and you really want it to be more timeless, to not be as specific as any one period of time, because you want something that's going to stand the test of time. So we tend to stay away from things that are too trendy and too specific to any one particular period. So I think that's one of the key things. It's one of the key elements of our success. But I think also the aspect of really tying into whatever you define elegance. So one person may define elegant as being cutting edge contemporary. Another person might find it as 18th century. We work with whatever they decide they want is their term or thought of what is elegant, but then we make it comfortable and timeless.
And speaking of that, you have a new partnership with THG,
right?
Which is you have two new bath lines. Yes. Tell me about those.
Well, it was such a great honor to be asked by THG, because THG is truly one of the finest companies in the world in terms of craftsmanship. They're sort of the Hermes of bathroom fixtures, and so it's all about quality. And the fact that they have been asked by some of the greatest manufacturers, Lalique, Christophe, Baccarat, to make special faucets with their materials is truly a signal of the fact that they are the highest quality. So when they asked me to join the ranks of some of the other famous designers that have done collections for them, like Philippe Starck and André Putman, I was really thrilled. And to be one of the first American designers to be asked to do that was a real honor for me. So it was just great fun to work with them. And what I love about THG is that they create jewelry for the bathroom. And that's what's so special. It's like you look at it and it's each piece is so special. It's just so beautiful to touch. And that was really the inspiration. I went and spent 2 days at their factory learning how they work, talking to their workmen, and it's just extraordinary the way that they hand tool everything. So it was that aspect of getting that introduction to how they work that led me to develop the collection, which I did, which is really, I thought about, if this is the jewelry for the bathroom, when was it? What was the period that some of the finest jewelry for the home was made? And I thought about the fact that it was probably the 1920s, the 1930s, when some of the great silver makers like Tiffany's and Company and Cartier were making jewelry. And so I looked at some of that jewelry. I looked at some of the techniques, some of the themes, some of the textures, and then used those as the spirit for the two collections.
And it's fascinating too, and it's so fun between the metalwork and the inlays, just how they work all the materials together for and you say jewelry, but these have to be functional.
Oh, absolutely. They have to be functional. And that's what's so great about it, is that it's truly jewelry, but it's the best made, plumbing hardware on the market. So that's what's so important, is that it will stand the test of time. It comes back to my aspect of comfortable elegance. It has to work well and then has to be beautiful. And that's that combination that THG does so well.
And two lines, you've got Grand Central and West Coast. Right. Now, how did you approach each one, and what is the difference in your mind as far as artistically when you're putting these together? And I ask the question because, at first blush, you're seeing Grand Central, okay, that's East Coast, and then West Coast, that may be more contemporary and laid back, but, not knowing you have the opportunity to artistically and creatively create anything you want. What was the approach to this?
Well, what was so interesting, it's a great question, is that what I was trying to do was do something that actually was American in spirit, but still had some of the inspiration of the craftsmanship of old world Europe. And so it was really that combination of European elegance infused with American, more casual approach. So it really is a more transitional collection for THG, and I think that was something that they were really striving to achieve. The West Coast, and I think one other aspect that I would like to talk about is that the collection was really was inspired by the thought that today, high-end, basically everything at the high end of design, whether it's for fashion, whether it's for your home, is all about customization and the ability to customize and make it unique. We've had some high-end clients who've said, I don't want anything in my home that is seen anywhere else, and so we've had fabric woven, we've had furniture made, we've filled it with antiques or new custom pieces. But that thought is really a basis of where high-end design is. It's about customization so that people can feel that something's very unique. So we designed this collection so that it's all interchangeable. So you can literally mix on the same faucet handle. You can mix different finishes. You can mix it with brass and with nickel. You can mix it with brushed. You can mix it with polished. You can mix all those pieces so you truly can make it unique. And that is one of the really wonderful aspects about this collection. So there can be no two same faucets that are exactly alike, which I think is so cool.
It really is cool. And fundamentally, between the two lines, what is the difference? What is the essence of each one?
So
and the difference?
They're similar in they're cousins. I would say they're not
Okay.
they're not totally distant relations. They're probably cousins. There's some similarities to them. The East Coast or Grand Central version of what we sort of think is the more East Coast version has a spout which was inspired by the columns at Grand Central Station, the fluted columns, and so they've got that aspect. And yet the collection is available both in lever handle as well as crossbar. Because what's so interesting is that in America, people tend to like lever. Around the rest of the world, they tend to like crossbar. We also come in two different faucet types, a low and a high, because Americans tend to like high, and the rest of the world tends to like the lower faucet type. So again, it's so interesting. I love that learning about what sells, what does do well in different parts of the world.
Does that surprise you that there are such different preferences by continent? Does that surprise you?
It truly surprises me. What's interesting is to see though that it's not just a little bit, literally like 80 or 90% of the levers that are sold, the faucets that are sold here in America are levers, whereas it's 80 or 90%. It'd be one thing if it was like 50 or 60, but it's a huge proportion of difference, so that any company that's operated on an international basis really has to offer both of them.
Do you have any idea why that is?
I have no idea. I think I truly don't. I've always thought it was a difference between men and women. I always thought that men liked the crossbar and women liked levers, but it turns out that it's not. It's more of a geographic issue than a gender issue.
And it's fascinating too. I think so much more psychologically goes into design than we even know.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
It truly is. There's so much that is. And what's so fascinating also is to look at finishes and how that's changing. You know, for the last 5-10 years, it's all been about nickel. What we're seeing now is that it's changing to warmer finishes. We're seeing more and more brass and darker colors coming in. So that it's all about trends and what the pendulum that goes from one to the other. Because brass, as we know, was so popular 25 years ago, and I think it's becoming again that popular thing.
Isn't that amazing? Now here's the challenge. As a designer, as a creative, how do you approach trends and styles? Do you look at something and say, okay, this is going to be a 5-year trend, this is going to be a 10-year trend, or this is going to have some legs, it's going to last a while? Do you analyze it?
Well, I do. It's one of the reasons that I go to trade fairs all around the world, because I really like to see what's happening in different parts of the world. And you usually can see that if something's happening, you see it actually before the trade fairs. You start to see it in the flea markets in Paris. You start to see it other places. You start to see it in the antique shops all around in New York and in Paris and in London. You start to see what's becoming more popular, and you know that there's going to be a trickle-down effect. So it'll start at the very highest level, and it'll eventually go down to the lowest level, and it'll go to Restoration Hardware and Target, et cetera. So it goes to that mass level. So it's interesting to see those trends as they trickle down. And it's interesting because some trends really are going to be short-lived and others are going to be much longer. So that's one of the reasons I always sort of say, try to stay away from short-term kinds of trends, because that's where you get caught with something saying, oh, that's from a specific period. But there are bigger trends, for example, colors and textures of a material, which you really like. For example, the fact that brass was so big for long and then nickel became so big. That's a 25-year kind of trend. Well, that you really can't avoid. You're going to be stuck. You're going to get into that, and then. But again, at that point, after 20, 25 years, you should probably be changing things anyway.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
Let's hope so. I have a theory too. I think, okay, so not so much at the very top end, but in the middle third for sure. Post 2008, I think prior to 2008, 2007, there was a tendency not to look at long-term quality of products, because there was a lot of people weren't staying in their homes that long. There was that flipper mentality. My house is an ATM. I'm either going to refi or flip it and move and go do something else. After 2008, the world changes economically, and in the middle third anyway, people don't really think that way anymore. Do you think that had any effect on product purchase?
Interestingly, I wish it were as simple as the fact that the people are not looking at their homes as ATMs anymore. The problem is that so many manufacturers are making things in places like China, where it's necessarily the quality may not be as good. A lot of the other manufacturers in the plumbing industry, for example, 50 to 70% of their product is being made in China now. It still may have an American brand name, it may have a European brand name, but the products themselves are not being manufactured in America or in Europe. They are being manufactured in Europe. So it's a little tricky, because you can no longer just rely on the brand thinking, oh, that's an American brand and therefore it's going to be quality, because the manufacturers are looking at other places to source. So it's always key to sort of ask, where is this being made, and looking at the quality of that, because I think that there is nothing like investing in real quality, but you have to do your research to figure out what is the quality.
You bring up a very good point, and it leads to the other question. Aside from the trade shows, because you do the trade shows, and you really have to, aside from that, how do you source product? And how do you vet manufacturers? And, working with someone like a THG where you go and you meet them and you talk to them and you talk to their artisans, and by the time you leave,
Right.
Aside from being able to do that and truly vet, how, as a designer, do you source your product?
It's so key. The easy trend is to say I'm going to do everything from online, and so many of our designers in our office, they do, and it's a great way to do it. But there's no substitution for getting out and touching and feeling and trying the product itself, sitting in the chairs, looking at the finishes and things like that. So you have to continue to do that, and I think that's it's something we have to force ourselves as designers to do, is to get out there and go to the workshops, see where it's being made. And I think that the smart manufacturers are the ones who encourage designers to go do that. And a lot of manufacturers are doing trips where they say, come to our factory, see the way it's made, because truly that's when you see the quality that is there or is not there.
At the same time, do you think that the internet and the ability that everything is just at the touch of your fingertips and it's so easy, has that hurt the trade show business? Has that made a difference?
I think it definitely has made a difference. All the trade shows are seeing numbers that are decreasing every year, and I think that people feel they can really substitute those kinds of trade show visits with just going on the internet. But again, there's nothing like seeing and touching it yourself. And the interesting thing is, clients will ask that. Clients will say, have you sat in this yourself? Have you seen it yourself? And I think that you really have to be able to look at them in the face and say, yes, I have, and I can guarantee you this is a product that I can stand behind.
From a designer's perspective, what lessons do you think you brought with you from the advertising business that have served you best?
I think there are two really important lessons. The first one is that to remember that we are in a business, and that yes, we are creative, but that we have to really handle our clients' money with real care, with real consideration, and run our business like a business. And I find that too many designers don't do that. They're not providing clients with transparency. They're not letting them say, this is what I paid for it, this is what you paid for it, and here's what our markup is, or here's how we've charged our hours, whatever it is. I think that as a business, we do ourselves a disservice to not be as transparent as possible. So I think the first thing is that aspect of running a business like a business. And the second thing is understanding that there is nothing like trust between a consumer, between your client and you. And once you establish that trust, you can actually get away with making some mistakes, and they'll forgive you. But you have to maintain that trust every step along the way.
Why do you think the business side of it is really interesting to me? Why do you think the business side has not come along? Is it because we're in a creative industry?
I think it's because we're in a creative industry, and frankly, not enough clients demand the level of professionalism, which they should from us, because there are a lot of designers who don't. They may be the most creative people in the world, but they're not really understanding the importance of the business aspect. And I think in the long run, that hurts our industry. So I think that's something that I've been very involved in. Every time I go around the country, speaking at showrooms, I'll ask designers, let's talk about how you're running your business. Let's talk about your transparency, et cetera. And it's something that it's interesting because designers tend to work in their own little vacuum. There's not a lot of interchange. And I think that it's something that's very important that the design industry starts to encourage, is that we do talk amongst ourselves and try to encourage increased discussion and openness about the way we do our business.
In your career as a designer, do you have a favorite project?
Gosh, that's like asking your favorite child.
I know.
I would have to say my favorite project has been the ones that I've done for myself, because that's where you take the most risks. It's where you try things that you haven't tried someplace else, because a client you're not sure it's going to work out, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think it's that sense of growing and of pushing yourself that I love the most.
What kind of client are you with regard to interior design?
What kind of a client?
Okay, let me preface
Okay.
it with this. I've noticed that there's a couple of different kinds of clients.
Uh-huh.
There are the kinds of clients who are capable. I'm not like this. But the kinds of clients that are capable of turning it over and saying, you know what, I love your ideas. I'm bringing you in for this. Just go make it happen, knowing that here's what I love.
Right.
They're the kind of clients who are, this is the idea, this is the plan, this is where we're going, we're not deviating. They're the kind who will change every 5 minutes because they saw something in a magazine and it's pretty and it's...
And there's nothing more irritating than that kind of client, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then there's different shades of gray between any of those three, it seems to
exactly.
be. What kind of client are you when you're doing a project for yourself, so you're working with the trades, but it's for you?
I'm very, I love working with the trades, and that's where I say, and it's true now, it's true, I will say, you're the expert at this part. So you need to tell me what is really your idea and how to do this. I'm the kind of client, though, who doesn't take no very easily, because I know that there is a way to accomplish anything. So if I say, let's try this, and they'll say it can't be done, I'm the kind of client who'll say, I know it can be, I just need you to figure out how to make that happen. And I think that's one of the key things, is to know that you can accomplish anything, you just have to figure out how to do it.
Is there a project? This is a silly question, but it's the last one. So.
Okay, you're allowed.
yeah. Is there a project that, kind of like the dream project for you, the one that I don't know, any particular residence, any particular project, no matter how out of the box or outlandish it may be, is there any project that you've always wanted to do, that type or that particular project or that particular property?
Well, it's interesting because I actually would say the whole area of doing product design is the area that I'm actually loving the most, because it's mixing my two careers, my career in advertising, where you really had to get involved in understanding a company and what their needs were, and trying to solve that problem, and then my design career, where it's taking that design aesthetic. So it's the merging of the two. So I've really loved product development and design, and I think that's something that I'd love to continue to do more of.
Outstanding, and I'm sure we're going to see more of it.
Great. Well, thank you.
This is Convo by Design. This is Timothy Corrigan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, for taking the time and the willingness to share your story with me, not once, but 4 times. Congratulations on your addition to the Convo by Design Icon Registry. Thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. Thank you to my partner sponsors, Design Hardware, Thermosol, TimberTech, Monogram, and Pacific Sales. These are amazing companies and amazing partners all, and they support the trade, and I love sharing these amazing resources with you. Thanks again for listening. Until next week, be well, and take today first.